it then because my option just disappeared. Okay, just to reiterate how to organize your LMS using Google Classroom and Canvas. So our purpose in this session is for you to be able to choose the best way for you to organize your Google Classroom based on your needs as a teacher and any requirements that your school has been offering you. A lot of what we have collected and that we're presenting to you guys today is based off best practices that we've seen teachers just like you doing. So if you have great ideas that we aren't including, we'll give you time to share that out at the end of the session.
And actually, if you have great ideas that we're not sharing, we so want you to share, because those are the things that we really love to know.
Yep. And then also kind of keeping in the back of our minds is what I'm doing making sense for my students and the caregivers that are helping them at home. And so we've included at the end a few of those things to kind of keep in mind from the different perspective of those that are working at home. So in this first one here, in Google Classroom, a couple considerations. We've had a lot of questions from teachers on how can I organize just the massive amount of information that I have in my Google Classroom. So one option, especially if you like to build stuff ahead of time, is to use a sandbox course. So this would be a completely separate course that you're not going to invite any students into, but you're going to have all your work there ahead of time. So that way you don't have to worry about it being scheduled at a certain time in your Google Classroom where you can still see it. But then when you're ready to actually move it into an active class, you'll just reuse post and you'll be able to find it from your sandbox and input it into your Google Classroom. Another question similar to that is, what can I do to archive? So these classes are done, I don't want to see them anymore. You can archive an entire class, but you can't archive specific assignments at this point. So creating your own archive session like this past due work section down here is a good way to be able to have an archive. But if you allow late work, it still exists in your Google Classroom so that students can find it. Anything I'm missing there, Nicole?
Nope. I think it's really just the focus of finding something that works for you and being consistent with your students.
This was one example that we really felt we've seen quite a bit in elementary that's been useful. So the overall structure of this first diagram is by day. So I have my Monday, I have my Tuesday, I have my Wednesday. The second one over here is weekly. I don't have the title at the top, but in each one, they also did further organization by using emojis. So over here, the books are going to be my reading class. It's kind of hard to see what some of these little ones are, but then over here, the colors designate day of the week. On the next slide, I'll show you how you can insert emojis into Google Classroom. So this website, and I don't know if Nicole, you could drop that into the chat. Emojicopy.com is a great place, but there's several websites like that. And as you can see, there's just a ton of emojis you can choose from. But what's nice about this website is it has this search bar at the top, so you can, if you want a bell for bell ringers, you can search in bell and this little emoji will pop up, you copy it, and then you can put it right into your assignment. What I've shown on number 4 down here is if you want to change your topic, how you rename your topic. And it's just by going to the 3 dots. So then you can see the before and after of today. I put my blue check mark in of kind of to draw their attention to what they should be doing today. So this today section is something that I've seen quite a bit that teachers are using now. I think in the spring, a lot of teachers in Google Classroom were assigning things as a full week to give students flexibility. But what we've heard has been difficult on the home end of things this year is if we assign things as a full week, helping the students to organize, okay, well, if it's due Friday, what do I do today? So we'll have the parents that are in charge at home of work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they don't see anything on the student's to-do list. They don't see anything on the student calendar. So they think, okay, they're caught up. They've done all their work. And then the parent or caregiver that goes to help that student on Friday sees that 20 different things are due. And there's no way that they can get them all done in one day.
And so, the same goes for Canvas assignment due dates too. If there's something that needs to be done in a certain order, assigning due dates that roll with that make much more sense. to our students too.
And we can still get them on the calendar without this today section if you don't want it, but I'm going to just show you quickly how to do that. So this first one has a week at a time, and then the archive, the past due work. But I liked this teacher example that I found over here. If you have classroom materials that the students need to access frequently, you can still have that section at the top. And on the side, you can see that they have each unit set up. And that allows them to go back and look at other units too if they ever need to reference past work. The only thing I don't like about this bottom example is that Unit 3 is at the bottom. And I think it's easiest for students to access if your most recent work is at the top. All right. So I've worked with a couple teachers that have wondered, how do I assign something? They think that if they assign it to a specific day, that they have to grade it. And that's a big difference that we want to make. Just like you would do when they were in person, you're not going to grade every single thing that they do that day, but you're going to encourage progress on work. So if I'm in the middle of a big project, if I'm in the middle of a writing assignment, what is the goal for the students to get done that day? And so that is kind of what this page is showing. You can still show it as ungraded, but due on that day. You can designate in the title, if we're in level 2 again, which group is doing that work, and it will show up on the other group's calendar, but they can easily click submit or turn in when they're in the classroom with you to get it off their calendar if they want to. But this at least helps organize students and see what is my purpose today and what should I be doing. And if you're interested, I can even show you if you have like this massive document of a big project they're doing and you want to highlight a certain section of it, you can actually add a link specifically to that section of the document, so they can focus in on what in this big project am I doing today. So if you're interested at the end of our session, you can let me know if that's something that would meet your needs. I think it's on to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Andi. And so just for a bit of a data point, so we've got 10 teachers in here. No, 12 teachers. And we're about half and half Google Classroom users and Canvas users. So we have included both within this presentation. For our Canvas users, we're going to use kind of the same thing. Do what works for you and your students. And this is one of those things that ask your students how it's going if you're not sure, or if you're continually having struggles, be reflective and try to see how you can curb it. So here's an example. Are any of you using a sandbox course? Any of my Canvas users, are you using a sandbox course and then building that with another teacher and then pulling from that course and putting it in your current one? Are any of you doing that? Simone says no. Well, Simone, you're the only one teaching your course. Amber, are you doing that at all?
I started with my sandbox one, and then once I got quite a bit done in it, then I moved it over to the one that I'm using now. But we share content a lot. Like the other teachers send over assignments or entire sections. Like they'll build out their entire section for something, send it over, and then I pick and choose what I want to use out of theirs, and then just don't publish the stuff that I don't want to use.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So as we kind of move forward and to kind of create the essential housing for it, what we are suggesting is to have a sandbox course. And if you need me to make you one that can live so that you can do that and put all of your teachers that teach the same course in that, but it's super easy to, you go from your sandbox course and then use the, I call it the snowman up on the top of the module, and then you can copy the whole module, or you can copy the individual page or assignment. So, but that's just kind of a way to work smarter and work together on that. And another one is for students to be able to easily get to the learning. And I have some other examples on this, but if they're going into modules, have wherever they need to be in modules at the top. So have your module build from the top down. So the most recent stuff is at the very top, and the most, the oldest stuff or archived pieces or maybe old units or old past weeks would be at the bottom. So it goes in reverse order instead of scrolling up to find everything, just making it as accessible to our students as possible. And that's a really easy thing by using, it's the, what would that be? 8 dots over on the side of the actual module, and you can just click and drag it up. And then I'll show an example later of how you can create a link on your home page. So this is an example we have teachers that have just created, instead of having the students use the modules, they have this visual on their homepage. And this is two teachers that work together and build all their content together. But students they always know that they click on coursework for whatever they're doing that day. And that coursework is a new link to the most current module they're doing work in. So they do change that link and update it each week, but think of how accessible that makes it to students as they're getting to the content. Andi, you're doing a great job. Some things in Canvas, and if you aren't doing this, I'm going to highly suggest this could have some great points to utilize. Something I have to say is Andi talked about using emojis in Google Classroom. If you have something you are syncing to the gradebook, do not use emojis. It will sync wrong. Okay, so if you take anything away from this session, that will be it. Your sync to sys, it won't like it and it'll come out funky. So, but this session, or for this one, I want you to think about module requirements. And if you've never done that, this is how it looks from the student end. So you can see prerequisites, anything that they had to do before. They have to complete all of the items. And for this one, it's set up so they have to do them in order. So I've had teachers say, oh, my student doesn't have access to, so like they would not have access to the summary. Well, they don't have access to it because they haven't done all the other pieces to get to that. So you can see what they've done has the green check mark, and then what they would need to do next does not have the green check mark. And it really helps students see their progress. There's my finger. As they go through the module, what do I need to do next? Thank you, Andi. So this is just how you create those requirements. So you could click on the snowman at the top in your module. Thank you, Andi. And then it pops up this little sub window really. And at the bottom, you see where it says requirements, and you can pick options that they have to do all of them, that they need to move through them in sequential order. You can turn that on or off. You can make sure that they just do one of the assignments. That's another thing to select, but you just select the assignment from the drop-down menu, and then you pick the requirement, which could be view, submit the assignment, submit the discussion. It just depends on what the item is that you want. Mark as done is also a requirement you can make here. If you are going to start using mark as done, I would highly suggest that you let your students know they need to mark as done, because as you remember, mark it as done is at the top of the page. And if the page is really long, they'll try to hit next and they'll just move on. And then they won't be able to get to things because they didn't mark as done on that page. This is something I recently found. And so how do students know what to do? First of all, there's the to-dos, which we also have as teachers. Our to-dos are what we need to grade. But the student to-dos, as you can see, so this top one on the right is the to-do from a student view. It tells the course, which I highlighted, and it's from a sandbox course, but it tells me when it's due, how many points it is, and it's a direct link to the assignment. So if you don't put a due date on something, it won't show up on the to-dos. There are also ways to shut off and make things not show up on their to-do if that's something you want to do. Now, something as you can see there on the bottom, it is called list view. So the default within Canvas is card view. Some of your students may really benefit from list view. This is kind of like Andi, if you has with Google, you can see the calendar or your to-do and it comes up in order. This may be something, so your students have to change this setting themselves. They do that by clicking on the snowman, which I've highlighted there in the top right of their screen. Thank you, Andi. And then instead of card view, which is default, they would pick list view. Recent activity is another one that they may really like, but that kind of just shows where they've been and what they've been doing. I really like list view for my student. And then something that teachers are using to kind of help students know what they should be doing is announcements within the course. So to do that, how many of you are using announcements in courses? Canvas announcements for either the week. I see Simone, Cassandra, Amber. Okay, so this is what this teacher uses it as and I see Ben, yep. This teacher uses it as hey, remember this is what you need to get done this week. You can also put files in there. So the students go into the course and they'll see that and they will click on it and have access to it. It's just another way to create some clear communication to our students about what they need to do. Oh, and you can also set that to when it posts. So it can post Monday morning at 8 a.m. and stay on for 2 weeks. As you can see, that's what that teacher has done. So that week 4 agenda will shut off next Monday.
Really, the equivalent of this in Google Classroom would be the stream. I don't know how many of you use the stream. I found last year that a lot of times the students didn't always check the stream because so much shows up in there. And so that's one thing Nicole and I talked about a lot, is making sure you're training your students to check their email if they're not used to checking their email. Otherwise, they may not realize that you've given them feedback or responded to their comments. And if any of you guys have hints or tips that have been working for you in the classroom on that, let us know. This is an example that we really loved. We have to give Robbinsdale credit. I think the whole school is using this method there.
Yes.
Okay. So they provide a week at a time for their students and everything is housed in one place. So then you can just post this one board on Google Classroom and there's links in it for their direct instruction, for their other assignments. So instructional videos are right up here on top. I could go in and link the videos that I wanted them to see in Study Sync as well. This is another video for how they do this assignment on their e-learning Friday. Then coming down to the assignments, you can actually link to Google Classroom assignments. So these would be under like the week of work in Google Classroom, but this whole board would be the only thing under today and maybe attendance, depending on how you're doing that. So here's the different links to the assignments. And then this is what's really nice for those parents that are like, what is on their to-do list today? I don't see anything in Google Classroom. They can see it right here. This is something that you wouldn't really want to make an assignment for in Google Classroom, but if you want them to be reading every day, how do they know to do it? What's that reminder for them? So it's right here for them. This could also be bell work, anything that they need to put in their science journal, whatever you do on a daily basis. I've seen elementary put Prodigy in there too, if they want to play Prodigy that day.
And Andi,
and then,
I'm sorry, I just want to add to this, and I apologize for interrupting you. This is what they've used as their accountability piece for every subject for the week. So the teachers actually turn in this hyperdoc to the principal.
Gotcha. And then this is something that I added because I've had questions on, well, how do I answer student questions when we're in level 2 for those students that aren't in front of me, but they're working at home the same time I'm teaching? What can I do? So this would be a way to link to a question in Google Classroom. And if you leave it open to allow other students to comment on it, then you might be able to use that classroom community to answer some of those questions. And everything is going to be saved. You can make sure that you can change it so they can't edit their response to make that accountability and make sure that they're putting things that are appropriate there. But encouraging them to help one another is a great thing to do. And then you can drop in if you have time in between classes to double check and see if there's any answers that you need to clarify.
And just couldn't we do something similar in Planbook? So if we wanted to just basically put all of those hyperlinks in Planbook to everything, the students then could click through Planbook and click on those links.
Yeah, and so Cassandra, you can actually you can just copy the page or the assignment in your Canvas course and make it directly linked to Planbook. Is that what you're talking about? Or whatever, it may be an outside source. It may not be built in Canvas. It may be a video you want them to view over there. Yep. Something that we've heard from some teachers or students, if it's all in Planbook and then I go to Canvas for just some things, as long as students know that's what they are going to consistently do. Because sometimes it just creates a little confusion that there's 2 places. Oh, this is main. So this is just an example of that same thing that Andi showed. So what the teachers wanted to make sure that the students have a clear understanding of what they need to do for the week. So this is just a snip. It's not a hyperdoc because they have all of the other modules built in a different way. So that's why I wanted to show this one. It totally gives a really clear understanding. This is a, it's clear what I have to do, and it helps the students just know their expectations.
All right, so this last section here that we wanted to talk about considerations for the caregivers that are helping students at home, and really kind of the motivating factor in putting this in here, besides to make things easier for those people helping students at home, is we've heard a lot of how much teachers have had to put their time towards those organizational tasks. And we know some of that was figuring out the attendance procedures, but also just getting through emails and what's the best way to respond. And I'm fielding so many questions. So if we can provide an easy way for parents to navigate and plan, hopefully that will reduce some of the administrative tasks that you have to go through in answering questions for them. So one of the first things to consider is in level 2 and 3, if you can post the assignments the night before they're due, that allows those parent caregivers to help them plan. So my daughter's in middle school, so she sits down with her dad the night before and they planned out what she was going to do for her level 2 days that she was at home and her e-learning Fridays, so that she could do all of that on her own and independently. So if you wait until 8 a.m. the day that they need to work on it, then a lot of times those kids are flying solo because they don't have that parent helper with them. Same thing with elementary. Parents might have to fill out a guide to send to the daycare. And so if they don't have that information the night before, the student will not be working during the day. There's just no way to get that information to them. Anything else on that one, Nicole?
That one fits no matter what LMS you're using. I know that some, parents are really trying to help their kids. We're dealing with students that aren't active and participating, and so we need to make sure that we're doing all that we can to help the parents help their students and to help the students help themselves.
So some specifics here, depending on LMS, most teachers using Seesaw and Kickstand have created tutorials, sent them out to their parents. But with Google Classroom, if you're not aware, there are guardian summaries, and this link I can put in the chat for you guys. It is a tutorial for for teachers. I could make one for parents as well, but it really kind of outlines what the guardian summaries are. It does not give parents access to Google Classroom. They cannot go in and do their students' work. They don't actually see the classroom at all. They get an email that shows what the student has coming up that's due, anything that's past due, and they can choose to receive these daily or weekly. All you have to do as a teacher is make sure they're turned on and input the email address that the parent gave you. So there is a little bit of front loading time for the teacher to be able to put in that email address, but then the parent gets the work, and there's no, I didn't know my kid had this due. As long as those guardian summaries are on, they are informed of what their child should be doing in your class.
And I am just dropping the link for creating the pairing code in Canvas. So something to realize, if you have, so they will come up as a people. So in the people tab within Canvas, your observers will all come up, so you will know who is in there. But once they pair with their student, they're in all of their students' courses as an observer. So as an observer, they are able to see grades. So I would make sure that you are effectively communicating with your parents that the grades in Skyward are the grade. They can use Canvas to see progress monitoring, but there may be grades that you don't have in Canvas that you do have in Skyward, or if there's weighted gradings and all that, it changes it and makes it different. So really communicate with your parents, if they are in that course, what they're seeing and how to help them, just so that they're aware of how to best utilize that resource.
You had a question in the chat. Can they use pair codes for a sub?
No, because they would then be paired to a student, and we are not creating accounts for subs. So because if you have a sub, you're going to, honestly, right now, you have some of the best leveraging tools of your students know what to do in their LMS, and leverage that to the best of your ability. And I don't know if Valerie wants to add anything else to that, but subs will not have access to Canvas at this point.
I don't know that I have anything to add other than our substitutes have a challenging time taking on the variety of LMSs that we're using in our district, and so we do have to work around that when we know we're going to be absent. They just don't have all the tools that you have now.
Nicole,